Alright, today we're going to talk about protest software because people keep repeating this lie. Okay, so I'm going to explain this to you in case you've never, heard this term before. I'm going to have to explain a few terms so you understand how Linux works, right? So, systemd a while back had taken over as the main init system for most distributions. That is why it is considered the init, and anything not systemd is considered an alt init. In 2026, that's just the way it works. The amount of distros that don't that don't use systemd is kind of slowing down. You know, it's a lot of distributions have just made the switch over. Like LFS actually has just switched fully over to systemd. So you have systemd and you have alt inits. So what happens is people will see distributions like Void or Gentoo or and these are Chimera, these are non-protest distributions. I don't think anyone in their right mind is making that argument that they're a protest distribution. Instead, they go after Artix and Devuan. So, what Devuan is, it's basically Debian but with sysv init pre-installed, and then it has a wrapper over it that uses either Runit or OpenRC. So, it ends up making a lot of improvements over Debian's sysv init support by adding a real init system on top of it that isn't fucking sysv init. And what Artix does is it's a drop-in replacement for Arch Linux, but it takes every init system that Arch doesn't support, and it decides to support it. So what you'll hear from systemd propagandists is that this is called a protest distribution, that they are forking it because they don't like systemd. Now, even if that's true, the definition of protest is an objection towards something. So what that implies is you have no actual merits for anything, you only have strikes against the thing you are protesting. For example, you would protest a president you don't like, but, you don't actually, you're not saying, oh, I prefer Joe Biden, you're not saying, I prefer that Joe Biden's, policy to Trump's. You're saying, I don't like Trump's policy. You know what I mean? So in this, so if you have a protest distribution, you have removed something and added something to it. So I don't really like using the term protest because what people will interpret this as is, oh, you just don't like systemd. But really, the reason I'm using Artix is because I actually like S6 init, or I like OpenRC, or whatever I'm using, So I have valid reasons to want to use S6 init because I like its feature set, I like how it works, I like getting the benefits of S6, you know what I mean? So people will attribute the protest not to the people using it, because it is possible for you to protest systemd and say, I'm just going to use S6 because it's not systemd. But that is on the fault of the person using the software, not on the software itself. So the other argument I heard is, and I think this is why it shows a misunderstanding of the topic, is because they'll say, if you fork Debian with the intention of removing KDE, that is considered a protest. And yes, that would be a protest, because all you are doing is removing KDE from Debian because you just don't like KDE for some reason. You haven't provided an actual alternative, and you have given no benefits to the user other than it just doesn't have KDE in it. You can't install it. So that would be a protest. But when you have an alt init distro, like if you're using Artix, the benefits you get are you have Arch, but you also have a different init, and it is well supported. And in S6's case, it's kind of just the best experience that you're going to get. Otherwise, I would use a distro that purely ships S6. I'm still looking for one. If you know one in the comments, let me know. Oberon didn't really work for me. I tried helping them debug their installer. It wasn't really working out. So I'm like, fuck it. I don't know if I trust you guys. So what you'll hear, though, is that, they'll say, oh, well, I'm not saying that there are no merits. I'm just saying that it is a protest. But again, like I say, this is just factually inaccurate. Because that would imply that there are no benefits to using an alt init. You can say that there are, and that you're not saying that they're not, but then you wouldn't be using the term protest. You would be using the term alternative or something else like that. I actually don't think even in xlibre's case that they're considered protest software, because even if, like, what are they actually protesting? They're protesting that Xorg was abandoned and they are trying to continue development on it. There are actual reasons to want xlibre to exist and to have development, you know? So it may be a reactionary, even like Dev1 was a reaction to Debian not having systemd, or sorry, not having run it anymore. I mean, they still kind of do, you know? Or they wanted OpenRC or whatever, or just not supporting alt inits. But they have provided, and not only an alternative, but they have provided benefits. Like, it's always subjective benefits, but you will get something from run it over systemd if that's what you want to use, you know? It doesn't have to be because you're... oh yeah, so the argument I got was they are trying to remove systemd. And yeah, that is... even if it says that in the project's goals, that isn't what it actually means, you know? And using that to argue against it is actually just twisting their words, basically. Because protesting systemd, you know, the way how you would make a systemd protest distro is if you just remove systemd. And that is why if you fork systemd with the intention of just removing, like, age verification, you're protesting against age verification. That is an accurate, that is an accurate use of protest, but it doesn't apply when you are switching software. You know, like, okay, I'm protesting KDE by my distro shipping XFCE. That's not a protest. That is me shipping an alternative and filling in a void that was not filled before. That's basically how that goes. So, in case you hear anybody talking about protests, that's... people actually believe it when they say that, and so they'll say, oh, that's kind of cringy that you're protesting systemd, but you'll only hear this. Only ever. You will only hear this from systemd propagandists. And if you hear that, you definitely don't want to listen to these people, because they will definitely lead you astray. They will push you away from an alt init. And I'm not saying that you have to use an alt init. Like, if you want to use systemd, go for it. Just don't try and tell people that they shouldn't use it because all they're doing is hating systemd, because that's 100% not true. It's basically projection onto somebody else, you know, that all you can think of is just hating systemd. And again, you can say that it's not, but by using the term protest, that's what you implied. So, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.